I used to work night security at this downtown office building in Chicago. It wasn't one of those big skyscrapers, just a mid-sized place. About 12 floors, mostly office suites and a couple of medical practices. My shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and most nights were uneventful. I'd sit at the front desk, monitor the cameras, and do a walkthrough every couple of hours. The building would go completely dead after about 8:30. Cleaning crew was usually out by 9:30. After that, I'd be alone for the night. Anyway, this happened during the winter. I remember because it was freezing cold at the time, and the lobby would get this weird draft no matter how high the heat was turned up. One of those little details that sticks in your head for some reason. Everything started with the elevator. It was maybe the second week of January when I noticed it. Around 3 a.m., almost every single night, the elevator would move. It would go from the lobby to some random floor, then back down, and sometimes back up again. No one had used their key card. No one came in or out of the building. It just moved. At first, I figured it was a glitch. Elevators can have weird little issues when they get old. Maybe a bad relay or faulty sensor or something, but it started happening more and more often. Same time. Around 3 a.m., like clockwork. What made it weirder was the pattern. It wasn't random. The elevator didn't just go up and down to different floors. It started following a loop. From the lobby to the 8th floor, then down to 4, then to 12, back to the lobby. Same floors, same order, same time. Now, I'm not the paranoid type. I've worked enough of these shifts to know most weird stuff turns out to be nothing, but I decided to log it just in case. I'd jot down the time it happened, what floors it stopped at, and how long the doors stayed open. It never made any sounds like someone was pressing buttons inside, just the soft ding and the doors opening and closing. After about a week of this, I got curious enough to go check it out while it was happening. One night, just before 3 a.m., I stood by the elevator instead of sitting at the desk. Right on time, the doors opened. No one was inside. I stepped in, checked the panel. No buttons were lit. I rode it all the way up to 8, then 4, then 12, and back down, just like it had been doing on its own. Still, nothing. Doors would open, stay open for a few seconds, then close. Silence. I told myself maybe it was still just some glitch, but it felt off, like I wasn't alone. A couple nights later, I decided to check the security footage. Our cameras weren't anything fancy, but we had one that looked into the elevator from a top corner. I pulled up the video from the night before and started skimming through it. At first, nothing. The lobby camera showed no one entering, no key card used. Then, right at 3:01 a.m., the elevator doors opened and someone walked in. It was a woman, barefoot, wearing what looked like an oversized hoodie and leggings. Her hair was kind of messy, long and dark. She didn't look at the camera, didn't press any buttons. She just stepped in, turned around, and stood completely still. She rode the elevator to the 8th floor. Doors opened. She didn't move. Same thing on the 4th, then 12th, then back to the lobby. She just kept doing that loop, over and over again, for nearly an hour. I just sat there watching the footage, trying to figure out how she even got in the building. I checked the lobby cam again. Nothing. She never walked in from the outside. No one buzzed in. There was no entry record at all. It's like she just appeared in the elevator. I started pulling footage from the other floors. I wanted to see if maybe she got in from one of the office suites or stairwells. Eventually, I checked the footage from the basement level. That's where the maintenance room and some old storage units were, not a public area. The elevator doesn't even go there without a key. That's when I saw it. The camera caught her coming out of one of the side doors in the basement hallway, a door that was supposed to stay locked 24/7. She just walked out like she lived there, quiet, calm, barefoot, and got right into the elevator. I froze when I saw that, because I'd been down there plenty of times. It's a creepy basement, but I'd never seen anyone, never heard anything. I double-checked the logs. We didn't have any tenants authorized to use that space. That section was supposed to be sealed off during renovations months ago. The next night, I waited until around 2:30 a.m. and went down to the basement myself. I'll be honest, I was nervous. I had my flashlight out and radio clipped to my belt. The hallway was cold and damp, smelled like dust and old metal. I walked past the breaker room, past the old boiler, until I reached the side door I saw her come from. It was slightly open. I pushed it in and stepped inside. It was an old supply room, mostly empty shelves, some busted office chairs, broken filing cabinets, but in the far corner behind a tipped-over shelf, there was a blanket, a little makeshift bed, and food wrappers. Bottles of water, some clothes folded up in a milk crate. Someone had been living down there. I backed out slowly and called it in. Cops showed up maybe 20 minutes later. They searched the place top to bottom, found no one, but they did confirm someone had been squatting there. They said it looked like whoever it was had been down there for weeks, maybe longer. They found an old maintenance badge, too, probably stolen, which might have helped her bypass some of the security. We never found out her name. They never caught her. After that, the elevator stopped doing its loop. No more random movements, no more barefoot woman on the footage. I finished out my contract with that building a couple months later. Got a job in a place with actual foot traffic and better lighting. I used to work the night shift at a small hotel in Utah, just off the interstate. Nothing fancy, 2 floors, about 30 rooms, mostly travelers stopping in for a night before continuing on the road the next morning. I worked the front desk from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Most of the time, it was uneventful. People came in, slept, checked out. I'd spend most of the shift answering phones, folding laundry in the back, restocking the coffee bar, that kind of thing. The quiet suited me, honestly. I liked the alone time, but there was one night I still can't explain. It wasn't dramatic or violent, nothing like that, but it's the most unsettling thing I've ever experienced, and it's stuck with me since. It was a Wednesday night, around the middle of March, I think. Cold out, still a little snow on the ground. We only had about 5 or 6 rooms booked that night, real slow. By midnight, the lobby was empty. I was sitting behind the desk reading something on my phone when the front door slid open. This woman walked in. She was strange. Not in a loud or obvious way, just something about her. She was tall, pale, had dark hair tied back neatly, and she was wearing a long gray coat. No suitcase, no purse, nothing in her hands. She walked straight up to the counter, didn't say a word. I gave her a second, then said, "Hi, welcome. Do you need a room tonight?" She just nodded. I asked for her name. She didn't speak, just stared at me. Then she raised her hand and pointed at the wall behind me, where the rack of room keys was. She pointed at one, room 212, then lowered her hand. Now, usually we require a name, ID, and credit card. That's policy. But in the moment, I didn't know what to say. She wasn't being rude, just weirdly calm, almost like she was in a trance. I asked again, gently, "Can I get a name for the reservation?" Still nothing, just that same look. Not angry, not scared, just completely blank. After a few seconds of silence, she slowly reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small wad of cash. Enough for one night, exactly. She set it down on the counter. I hesitated, but I guess something in me didn't want to escalate it. She didn't seem dangerous, just off. So I took the cash, grabbed the key for room 212, and handed it to her. She took it, turned around, and walked silently down the hallway toward the stairs. Never said a word. About an hour later, I went back to folding towels in the laundry room. I figured she'd just gone to sleep. At 3:07 a.m., the fire alarm went off. Loud and sudden, coming from upstairs. Not the whole building, just the alarm in room 212. I grabbed the master key and ran up the stairs. A couple of the other guests had cracked their doors open, wondering what was going on. I told them everything was fine, probably a faulty sensor. When I got to room 212, the alarm was still going. I knocked hard, called out that it was staff, then unlocked the door and went in. The room was empty. No smoke, no smell, nothing burning. But what really got me was how the room looked. It hadn't been touched. The bed was made perfectly. Sheets tight, pillows fluffed, no indentations. The bathroom was spotless. Towels still folded, trash bin empty. There were no clothes, no toiletries, no sign that anyone had ever stepped foot in there. But I'd seen her take the key. I watched her walk up. The fire alarm was coming from the small unit in the corner. I climbed up and reset it. It shut off immediately. Still no reason why it would have gone off. I stood in the doorway for a while, just staring. Everything about the situation felt wrong, like the air was too still. Eventually, I walked back downstairs. I pulled up the guest log and looked at the room chart. Room 212 was still marked as occupied, but there was no name on the reservation. No ID, no digital check-in, just a blank line and a cash payment. At that point, I decided to check the cameras. We only had 2 in the lobby, one pointed at the front desk and one at the entrance. I went back through the footage from around midnight, expecting to see her come in. She wasn't there. I watched the recording 5 times. No one walked in at that time. No figure, no movement, just me sitting behind the desk, then getting up and pulling a key. But on the audio, I could hear myself say, "Hi, welcome, and do you need a room?" I even saw myself take the money and hand over the key. But there was no one on the other side of the counter. I don't know how to explain that. I really don't. I called the hotel manager later that morning and told him everything. He didn't believe me at first, thought maybe I dreamed it or fell asleep on shift. But when I showed him the room, how untouched it was, and the fire alarm report, he stopped arguing. We kept room 212 closed for a few weeks after that. No one else stayed in it. Eventually, we had maintenance go in and rewire the alarm system just in case. But nothing else ever happened like that again. Every now and then, someone will ask me if I ever had anything strange happen during night shifts. I usually say no. But there's one part of that night that still sticks with me the most. When I was watching the security footage, just after I hand over the key to nobody, I swear you can see a faint reflection in the glass behind me, like someone tall is standing there, but only for a second. Then it's gone. I used to work as a night security officer for a small college campus in North Carolina. It wasn't a huge place, just a private school with a few old brick buildings scattered across a compact area. I usually got assigned to the administrative building. That was my main post. I'd sit in the lobby, check cameras, and walk the halls every hour or so. Same routine every night. The admin building was one of the oldest on campus. Built before World War II, I think. Real high ceilings, old wooden doors, floors that creaked even when you stood still. The kind of place that always felt just a little off when it got quiet. Especially late at night, when the lights hummed and the whole place seemed to breathe. Anyway, this happened in the fall. I remember because the nights had started getting cold and the students were all settling in for the semester. Around this time, I started hearing things. It wasn't anything dramatic, just these faint noises coming from above the ceiling tiles. I thought maybe raccoons had gotten in, or maybe birds. The building had a crawl space above the drop ceiling, and honestly, the whole place was due for some repairs. But these sounds weren't what I'd expect from animals. It wasn't scratching or fast movement. It was slow, real slow, like crawling. It would usually happen between 2 and 4 in the morning, always during the quietest part of the night. I'd be walking through the second floor hallway, doing a routine check, and I'd hear it above me. Soft pressure on the tiles, like something moving just out of sight. I'd stop, wait, listen, and then nothing. I didn't say anything at first, just made a note of it in the log. I even started timing it. When it started, how long it lasted, what part of the building it seemed to be above. I figured if it kept happening, I'd bring it up to maintenance. After about a week of this, I started noticing something else. A few of the staff lounges had mini fridges. People kept their snacks or leftovers in there. Every now and then, someone would mention something missing. Half a sandwich gone, a drink taken, a yogurt container moved. Just little things. Nobody took it seriously. People thought it was a coworker helping themselves. That kind of stuff happens. But it kept lining up with the same time frame. Every time I heard the movement overhead, I'd check one of the lounges afterward and something small would be gone. Eventually, I brought it up with my supervisor, told him I thought maybe someone was getting into the building at night. Not a break-in necessarily, just someone sneaking around. He asked if I'd seen anyone. I hadn't. He told me to keep an eye on it, but not to worry unless I caught somebody. So I did. One night I came in early and brought a ladder from the back closet. Around 3 a.m., when I started hearing the noises again, I grabbed the ladder and quietly rolled it into the hallway where the sound was coming from. I climbed up and gently pushed one of the ceiling tiles aside. At first, all I saw was darkness. My flashlight caught some insulation, old wiring, dust hanging in the air. Nothing moved, but there was a smell. Stale, kind of sour, like old clothes and warm food that had been sitting too long. I scanned around with the light and saw what looked like a sleeping bag, tucked way back into the far corner of the crawl space. There was a plastic grocery bag next to it, stuffed with wrappers and bottles. That's when I knew someone had been up there. Not just passing through. Living. I climbed down, radioed it in, and logged everything. Maintenance came in later that morning to do a full inspection. They pulled several tiles out and started crawling through with lights. After about 10 minutes, they came back down. They'd found more than I saw. There were several empty food containers, a small battery-powered lantern, a pile of clothes. Somebody had carved out a spot above the ceiling, just a few feet wide, where they could stretch out and stay hidden. Based on the trash, they'd been up there for at least a couple of weeks. Whoever it was had been getting in from the roof. There was a hatch above the utility room at the back of the building. It wasn't secured properly. Just a rusty old metal latch. No alarm, no camera. Easy to miss. When they checked the roof, they found scuff marks near the edge where the fire escape came up from the alley. The hatch was loose. No doubt about it. Someone had been coming in regularly, staying overnight, crawling through the ceiling space, and leaving before sunrise. No signs of forced entry. No broken locks. Just careful movements. Quiet. Deliberate. The college called the police, but there wasn't much to go on. They didn't have a name or a face. No one had seen the person. The security cameras outside the building were old and mostly pointed at the parking lot. But when we reviewed the footage from the alley camera, we caught something. 2 nights before the crawl space was found, the camera picked up a figure climbing the back stairwell up to the roof. Blurry footage. Thin build, baggy clothes, moving slow. Looked like a man. Could have been in his 30s, maybe 40s. He had a backpack and he never looked up. Just climbed the steps, pushed the hatch open and disappeared out of frame. That was it. They never caught him. Never saw him come down. The camera never picked him up again. After that, the college added a lock and motion sensor to the roof hatch. They also resecured all the crawl space access points and added stronger tiles. We did extra patrols for about a month. Nothing happened. No more food went missing. No more sounds. But here's the part that stuck with me. A week after the cleanup, I was working the overnight shift again. I was walking through the second floor hallway, same hallway where I'd first heard the sounds, and I noticed one of the ceiling tiles near the far end had shifted. Just barely. A corner was off-center, like it had been nudged. I climbed back up with the ladder, looked around. Everything seemed clear. I didn't report it. I just pushed the tile back in place and went back to my post. Later that same night, I went into the staff lounge on the first floor to grab a soda from the machine. The room was empty, nothing out of place. But I glanced at the little fridge in the corner, and the light was on inside. The door wasn't shut all the way. There was a sandwich missing from one of the containers. Half a sandwich, to be exact. Just cleanly gone. I didn't say anything to anyone. Next week, I transferred to a different post on campus. A newer building with better lighting, fewer places to hide. The admin building still stands. They cleaned it up, added new locks, fixed the hatch. But every now and then, if you're in the halls late enough, the air feels different. Like something's still hanging just above you. Quiet, waiting.